Whoa.
Hi.
Hey, hi, Sophia.
Nice to meet you.
So happy to have you.
Yeah.
Whoa. It's always funny. I mean, I do a podcast and I listen to your podcast and now I hear your voice in real. So it's always that feeling like when you meet somebody that you know from sort of like very close in your ear and then all of a sudden you sit next to him. It's always...
The power of podcasts, you're like really actually in someone's head.
Yeah.
You know? They can't multitask. They can only be listening.
And you're one of the first podcasters of the new age, right? I mean, you're doing the podcast for a couple of years now.
I guess so. It's been a couple years. Yeah, we have like 450,000 monthly downloads.
450,000.
It's grown a lot, yeah.
But I mean, your trick is you only have women on the podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
But why is that?
I don't know. I had a company called Nasty Gal, and now I have one called Girlboss. So it seems kind of fitting. Yeah, and there's very few like woman-run podcasts. There's like a few in entertainment. There's very few in business. So in the business section in the podcast app, it's always like me and Tim Ferriss and like a bunch of dudes. So it's nice.
Okay. Maybe you can explain, or maybe I can explain together with you a little bit what you do today. I mean, Girlboss is a media company, and I think media companies are understood best by like the typical article or the typical post or the typical content that you provide. Maybe you can like explain to us what your team or what you write about typically, so we all understand here in Germany what Girlboss is.
Yeah, so I mean, Girlboss started with a book, and that book's here in Germany. I know it's been here for a few years. I wrote that book 4 years ago now, and it became a Netflix series, which they put into 95 million homes. So the name Girlboss has become a part of the zeitgeist, and I named the book #Girlboss, which 4 years ago seemed like a very novel thing to do, even though it's seems a little bit cheesy. But today on Instagram, there's almost 10 million impressions of #Girlboss, and that word wasn't being used before I wrote the book. So it's grown a lot, and as far as media goes, we're a very young company. Writing a book is a piece of media, having a podcast is a piece of media, a Netflix series is a piece of media, but when this company started, they were all things that were built disparately. I was running my other business, so they were just kind of like side things that I was doing. And thank God I did it. But the momentum continued to grow, and there was this need for something like this for women who may not be the Sheryl Sandbergs of the world, who may not, who may have gone to community college like myself, who aren't like academics or pedigreed executives. And some of our audience are, but a lot of them are in their late 20s figuring out their next moves. But as far as media goes, I think brands are media. I think everything is media. If you're getting someone to talk about something and you're connecting with an audience, it's media. Today, Girlboss, we've done 2 conferences. We have almost 3 podcasts in our network and a team of about 20. We've raised about $3 million in venture capital.
And you have very famous investors. Gary Vaynerchuk, who's sometimes here, is an investor. Who else?
Gary Vaynerchuk, Troy Carter, who else? Brian Lee from LegalZoom and The Honest Company. And Lightspeed, who invested in Snap and a bunch of other, they're like a top-tier venture capitalist. But Girlboss is really about redefining success, and we don't have an answer for what that means. It's different for everybody, but it's a new era for women where we're able to write our own history, and we're doing that collectively. But what success means for each of us is individual, and we really just want to bring the conversation to our audience for her to make that decision for herself.
Before we got more into the media business, I want to just so everybody understands where you come from, just the beginnings. I mean, you created a brand out of nothing. I mean, you were an eBay power seller. You're doing your own things on eBay, and all of a sudden you had this huge brand and that inspiring thing. Can you explain a little how that worked? How do you start brands, or how did you start the brand at the time?
Oh my God, accidentally. So I've started 2 brands accidentally. One was an eBay store, and another was a book. But I think, when I started Nasty Gal, I was young. I was wearing vintage clothing. I think when you're young and you're connected to culture, you know where culture's going. And I I picked a name that you couldn't forget, whether you liked it or not, and I learned really, really quickly. So started, you want to know the whole story?
Yeah, sure.
It's such a long story, but started an eBay store when I was 22 years old, called Nasty Gal Vintage, and did eBay for about a year and a half, left eBay after a year, launched our own website, started carrying non-vintage items, which allowed us to scale, and went from, I think we did something like 75,000, we being me, our first year, which was like, more money than I'd ever seen. And then 250,000 and 1.1 million and then 6.5 million and then 28 million, and then we raised money. And eventually we did over $100 million in revenue. So Nasty Gal was a brand.
$100 million in revenue is not bad.
No, not bad. Not bad. It was, it took a decade to do that. And things changed in retail, things changed in fashion, and I never really set out to be a fashion CEO. That wasn't, I've learned how to get dressed because I ran that company for 10 years, but it was never my goal to run a fashion company. But I did, and God, I wrote a book 4 years ago. It was a New York Times bestseller. It spent 20 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. It's a bestseller here.
And then
Netflix made a series.
Yeah,
right?
that sounds all like a fairy tale. How did it happen? Netflix just called you and said, can we do a series about your life?
So WME is my agency. So they're a talent agency, and I was only really involved with the literary department, who would help me sell my book to Penguin, and. My brain. And when the book had spent all this time on the New York Times bestseller list, and people like Charlize Theron and these other production companies looked to WME to say, what's happening next? What books can we, license to Netflix or whoever to produce interesting shows? And they gave the book to Charlize, and she read it and she loved it, and they went and pitched it to Fox. I wasn't there, and then I really, really wanted it to go to Netflix. And I had met Ted Sarandos, who's their chief content officer, at a CES dinner many years prior. And then he emailed me and he said, my daughter's reading your book. And it's it's interesting. I can't take credit for selling the show because we had a really strong showrunner and Charlize Theron attached to it. But the power of relationships is such a huge thing, and you don't know when you meet somebody 4 years prior what they're going to mean for your career. And Ted was why that show sold.
And okay, let's then dive into today's media. Now you have this journey, and now you're running a media company and live on advertising. Is that the main? You're done with e-commerce. You just said on the podcast that I listened to, you're done with e-commerce. You're after this whole Nasty Girl episode. You're you don't like e-commerce anymore. Now you want to sell advertising. Is that true?
I love not having physical inventory. Digital inventory is amazing, and I want to have digital products eventually where the inventory is limitless. And that may be courses, it may be subscription. We're still very new. We're actually still on Squarespace. But we've worked with everyone from Google to American Express to Cadillac to Pinterest, the best brands in the world, the brands that...
Well, what do they do with you?
So we do programs across a series of categories, and so our channels. We have our conference, which we do twice a year, which is called the Girlboss Rally. And we integrate brands in a really interesting way. So with Google Chromebooks, we had a whole room of programming at the event with 40 Chromebooks on tables and workshops teaching everything from how to build your personal brand to learning how to build a P&L using Google Sheets, or learning marketing with Google Slides. And so they're very integrated campaigns, and then that extended into social and email and on our site and everywhere that we create content.
But it's a very long journey with content and advertising revenue to reach 100 million again, right?
Yes. I don't plan on being reliant on advertising revenue. It's been great for us for now. And
do you actually have banners, real skyscraper banners on the side?
No, there's no programmatic ads. We'll never do banners and boxes.
Okay, instead you have sponsored posts and that?
Yeah, we do branded content. Integrations with the podcast, so it actually hasn't been announced, but I guess I can probably announce it, but we just did a deal with Sephora, and it's for Sephora collection, and it's called Lip Stories, and it's 6 episodes centered around themes that, you know, back into the names of some of the lipsticks, but it's a first for Sephora. They've never done a completely owned show. It's a whole show just for them, and something we're really excited to do. So custom content is something that brands are really interested in.
Give me a good feeling. I do a podcast. I have, I don't know, 30,000 listeners maybe only, here, digital marketing podcast. You have a couple more thousand or 100,000 listeners, and you have Sarah Jessica Parker, Miranda Kerr, all these women on your podcast. How much can you ask an advertiser to be present on your episode? How much can you get from an episode for one episode?
Like money?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
I mean, I give you some hope. I mean, for us, it's like still small money.
For one episode, I don't remember. We did it. I can't say. I don't think I can tell you.
Is it?
But what I know is the standard for a custom show is probably like for a whole show for 6 episodes. Custom for a brand is somewhere between 400,000 and 500,000.
Whoa! That gives me a lot of hope. That's great news. 6 shows, 500,000. That's what you can get with podcasts.
There's not a lot of money in the direct response ads, and I love our partners on the direct response side, but it's a lot of work to read an ad about MeUndies or
underwear company.
Like an underwear company. Like use this coupon code to get your first order at 10%. It's just like when you've worked this hard in your career and you're literally reading ads that are like buy this underwear and get this discount and let me spell it for you. It's MEUNDI. It's like, oh my God, like what?
What am I doing?
It's like the low point of my week.
Okay, so you're asking, so it's like sort of like they're paying for the pain.
So I really like the custom stuff. I really love working with brands. It's not about that at all. I just love doing things that are integrated and it's more creative.
I can really recommend the podcast. So also to not only for the content, but also check out the way you integrate the advertising. It's interesting.
Thanks.
I mean, so it's not the usual way. And I mean, listen to a lot of podcasts from the US, and sometimes I know Bill Simmons and these guys, they do it a lot more simple than you do it. You do it like more advanced. What's the biggest source of revenue right now for your media company?
I mean, the deals we do are across our channels, but I'd say the biggest interest that brands are that they have in our podcasts.
Seriously?
Yeah. Podcasts and our events, and the events really, because we don't have a huge digital audience, we're very new, they're interested in being integrated into our events, but I'd say the biggest opportunities in podcasts, they're also interested in B2B, which we're not really doing now, but brands want to understand how to talk to women, they want to understand how to recruit women, they want to understand how to employ women, and as we've seen, many of them don't.
Where do you get your traffic from these days? Is it all coming from Facebook? Is it coming from Instagram? What's the traffic split or acquisition? Is there a strategy?
Yeah.
Or is it just all Sophia Amoruso fans? Who's coming?
It's a lot of it is Instagram stories and SEO, I would say.
SEO still? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think SEO is kind of like coming back.
Seriously?
I mean, yeah.
Good news for all the SEO people here in the room.
I just think like the owned and operated. A year ago, everyone was like, you don't even need a website. Just make content on Facebook. And just like, why would you even have a homepage? You know, Ben Learer was like, just make videos for Facebook. And I was just like, that sounds like mind-numbing and like really not fun to just make videos for someone else's platform. Like I'm a brand. Like I'm not just like a creator of like agnostic content, and like I wouldn't want that job. And I think as we've seen these platforms kind of stumble and deprioritize publishers, we're going to see, like, I mean, I'm sure someone here has talked about news subscriptions is on the rise, but also like owned and operated. Like it's an antiquated thing, but it's where a brand like really lives, I think.
are you like, we had just had Scott Galloway on, and I'm still like,
oh my God, I had to go on after Scott Galloway. It's like, thank you. Like, so
you follow what he says, and
terrifying. Yeah, he's really funny. He's really funny and really smart. And I took tons of notes.
Okay. But I mean, do you follow that whole current state of affairs in marketing and then the landscape?
I do. I subscribe to the information.
Oh, okay.
And I read like Digiday and Ad Age and Axios, and I look at everything.
Are you worried?
No, because we're not like a legacy media company that was built on Facebook. Like we're not built yet. So I think it's either the worst place to be today or it's the best place, because we get to choose where we go as things shift, and everything's shifting, and I'm confident we can build that conversation on our own platform and also on social, but not like rely on Facebook for all of our impressions or the way it has been.
I mean, you talk to and connect with celebrities all the time. It seems you have a very strong network. I mean, your investors, all your podcast guests, it's like the who is who of the US celebrity scene. And you said yourself, everybody's becoming a brand. What does that change? I mean, how do these people, do they all have like editors working for them? Is everybody like so aware now that is it different from 10 years ago? What's changing right now?
I think it's different for celebrities, because I think 10 years ago they could have just licensed their name and put it on some piece of shit, and it would have been okay. And I think everybody knows when something's just like a logo slap on like a white label product. And so celebrities are starting brands. They're building like their personal brands. They have like strong, smart publicists that are telling them to get involved with certain things and causes. And and that's how it should be. They should be, using their platform for social good, but they're also becoming entrepreneurs. Sarah Jessica Parker has a shoe line. Miranda Kerr has a skincare, like beauty line, and they own their, she owns her company, which is, I think, increasingly less rare for a celebrity, but relatively rare.
Okay. I feel like connected to you because we at OMR try to do similar things on a much smaller level, of course, in the marketing ecosystem.
This is small.
Yeah, but I mean, compared to what you do, it's small still.
No, it's not.
What's your advice to someone like me or to some other people like starting media companies? I see ourselves as a media company as well. So what's your advice right now? What do you look at? I mean, besides all the reading that you do and all the like operational traffic acquisition and that, anything that you think you can like point me at and say, look, Philip, that's the way to go? I
think it has been for a while, just have human conversations with people, meet people where they are. When things are good, there's no friction. If you're trying too hard to find an audience, then you have to optimize your product or your message. I think it's just as with everything, whether it's, selling something on eBay and optimizing, a catalog photo or creating content that people are going to enjoy and want to share, you're using common sense and you're learning quickly and you're optimizing. And if you're doing that, you can do anything. Okay. Any plans to come over to really like push your brand here in Europe? Not yet, but we have a pretty significant audience here. And I'd love to come to Europe and bring our conference here at some point. Maybe we can join up. We can like set something up. Yeah. So you know how many readers you have, like on a monthly basis from Germany or from Europe? How many users? Yeah, readers. I don't know. You don't check. I don't. It's not that I don't check. I don't. It's like a percentage, and I think Europe's probably like 20% of our audience. The Girlboss. Any other new projects coming out? The book, the Netflix series, now the website. Anything else that to expect from you? We're working on a really exciting digital product that is going to change how we communicate with and connect to our audience. That is also media, but allows our user to become the expert. But I can't really say much more about that. But I have an engineer and a product designer sitting next to me every day, building something that I hope makes our publishing experience eventually extinct.
In my initial keynote presentation, I recommended for everybody here to use Facebook groups. Do you have a huge Facebook group?
We do, and that's really been the place that we learn from our audience. So there's maybe like 4,000 people in the Facebook group. It's closed. Most of them are women who have come to our conference, and they're talking all day long, and it's so highly engaged.
Some kind of insect flying.
It's just like they're like super engaged, and they're asking each other questions. And I think when you're building anything, you want to build around like what people's motivations are. So being able to see those qualitative conversations that are happening and understanding that they're coming to us for these very specific things makes me think that we're competing with, I don't know, maybe Quora or Reddit more than we are with, someone like, I don't know, BuzzFeed. Okay. She's coming to us for like actionable advice and to get her questions answered. And that's where, a lot of that exists in the Facebook group today.
Guys at the bar, any questions from your side?
What is this bar?
It's friends of OMR sitting at the bar.
We are friends and we are fans. And I want to ask a fan question. In the Netflix show, were you happy with it, the way you were portrayed, and how much fiction was in there and how much truth?
So the only character that was a real character was me. So everyone else was made up. My mom is not like an alcoholic who just ditched me. She was really disappointed that her character on the show was like a total loser. A lot of things were true, the trolls in the forums. I never went to Coachella, so it's like it's a mix. And I liked the show a lot. I wasn't happy with how people responded to the character, which made me kind of think again about how I was portrayed, because I thought she was fine, but she was a difficult person, but maybe I have I don't know, a higher tolerance for difficult people, or maybe just a higher tolerance for myself, which probably makes sense. I liked the show, but I'm happy. One season was great, Going more than one season would have been, I think, really challenging to start over as I am with 95 million people watching me start a different business 10 years ago. That's really challenging to process.
Looking back at what you've achieved so far, in hindsight, if you knew back then what you know now, what would you have done differently? Anything popping to your mind?
I think I would have learned more about building a culture. That's something I'm really interested in now and spend a lot of time doing with our team. I started my last company accidentally in some ways. I wasn't trying to be a CEO. And when you start something unintentionally and it scales, it's messy. And so with this business, it's a brand that I started accidentally, but it's a business that I started very intentionally in the way I've hired my team and the way we work together. And we're maybe 20 people now, but we have a culture guide, and it's not as bureaucratic as it sounds. It's actually really great to have the amount of materials we have for everybody to understand what the job is for us to do together objectively, so we can all point at that. But I'd say, yeah, culture. I'm an only child. I think I had to learn the hard way, just interpersonal dynamics, and yeah, 10 years. I did that for 10 years, and I got to start over.
Last question from Mark.
Yeah, you strike me as a very authentic individual, somebody with a lot of humility, which is a plus, by the way.
Thanks.
But how difficult do you find that balance between the stage that you're at now, where somebody can give you a particular value to something, a monetary value, in order to do something that you may not feel, or to promote something that you may not feel is core to your original belief? Because obviously everything you did was really about message.
Yeah, I would say that our audience would revolt if we didn't do right by her. So, you know, we're working with brands to create value for ourselves, for the brand, and primarily for our community. And so when those boxes are checked, and we also understand like cultural kind of implications of all of the things in the world that's going on right now, which is we make content about this all day long, so we have to be good at that. I mean, I'm sure we'll make mistakes, but we have a very vocal community who's very educated, who's savvy, and knows when like someone's full of shit, and that's the last thing we want to be. So.
And Sophia, where did you get your hat? I'm asking this. Put the rumors to bed. I'm asking this on behalf of my daughter.
I got it on Net-a-Porter. It's Isabelle Marant. There's probably a more French way to say that.
Net-a-Porter is a huge e-commerce shop, but Isabelle, I'm not.
This is like a German thing?
No. I mean, it's a Hamburg thing. It's actually like in Hamburg, very many people, but older men wear these hats in Hamburg.
I am an old man.
In a way.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's a Hamburg symbol. But I mean, I'm sure you didn't even know that.
I didn't know that.
It's sort of like a hidden greeting to the city.
Hello, Hamburg.
Thank you so much for having
Thank you so much.